Hello, everybody! Welcome back to the Marquette Golden Eagles Dynasty here on NCAA 14. In the last episode, we wrapped up the regular season as we fell to the Hawaii Warriors and dropping our last 5 games of the season in just pretty bad form as we fell to 4-8 here in the inaugural season of this Marquette Dynasty. So to start this episode, we'll just kind of look at some stats here and talk about some of the players. So Jake Haywood led our team in passing. He had about 100 more attempts there than Dylan Koufax, a better QB rating by about 4, so they were pretty even in that capacity. Only 11 total touchdown passes on the season to 13 interceptions. I honestly thought interceptions would be a bigger issue this season, so I'm kind of pleasantly surprised that we were able to only record about 1 per game. Not too bad when you consider our status. Move over to running backs. Javon Ashley led the way in rushing, but he will not be back next season. We'll rely more on Theo Briggs, as he'll probably stay in his similar role, and maybe we'll throw a Tyson Bolt out there a little bit more. Led our team in yards per attempt at 4.4 and just over 30 carries. Then we see Storm Norwood. He'll be mixed in a lot more next season, along with Dexter Dowling, who only got 1 carry all season. Receiving, Grant Cooper led in receptions. However, Shane Lytle led in receiving yards, just by about 22 there. Lytle, one of only 2 players with multiple touchdown grabs, as he led the way with 5. Jonathan Thomas, the only other player with more than 1. And then we had Javon Ashley had 1, Lamont Collier, Jordan Pinson, and Grant Cooper, of course. So next season, Jonathan Thomas and Shane Lytle will both be seniors as they'll lead this receiving core. Jordan Pinson, a true freshman at 68 overall, is going to have a big role, as well as a couple guys. Desi Watkins here. He only had 2 catches all year. We saw him in the last episode, but he'll be more involved as well. Our offensive line, we had only 7 pancakes all season. And that's let's rack up the sacks here. So Montez Chamberlain, our starting right tackle, 68 overall. He'll be a senior next year. Gave up 9 sacks to 0 pancakes. Jarvis Sneed, our starting right guard, 6 sacks allowed. Jackson Lyles, our other guard, 6 sacks allowed. Tremaine Berry, our starting center, 5 allowed. Jabari Branch, 4 allowed. As he took over at left tackle about midway through the season here for Channing Gates, who's set to graduate. He gave up 2 sacks, and then Branch with 4. So let's do the math real quick. 15, 21, 26, 30, 32, 30, 34 sacks allowed. So just about 3 per game. Definitely not good numbers there by our offensive line, although we expect to be better next season. Travell Terry at middle linebacker is set to graduate. He led our team in tackles. D'Angelo Bush second, and he's also going to graduate as well, our top defensive player at 76 overall. Tackles for loss, our sophomore defensive tackle, Gavin Battaglia, led with 11, and he had 10 sacks as well. Our next closest was Barry Barber at 5 sacks, who was just a rotational D-end all year. So he'll be a starter as a junior, and we think he's set for a monster season alongside there with Gavin Battaglia. Ladarius Gresham, a senior D-end, was pretty decent for us. He'll be graduating along with Reese Waters, who started most of the season at right outside linebacker. Other than that, nothing too noteworthy up front. Juice Campbell with 4 interceptions. I think 3 of those came in the first 4 games. Dickenzie Durant, his counterpart, with 2, and Travell Terry at middle linebacker with 2 interceptions, both coming in the first episode, the first game of this series. Pass deflections, 4 there for Campbell, 3 for Marcus Dixon, Tyler Black. D'Angelo Bush, 2 forced fumbles, 1 from Battaglia, 1 from Gresham. We didn't have any blocks, of course. We didn't have any safety. I thought we had a safety. I guess not. Juice Campbell had 2 pick sixes, and Dickenzie Durant there with 1. Now we'll head over to kicking. And Dylan Mackey was 8 for 11, so we couldn't even attempt 1 field goal per game just based on his weak leg. And his long was only 39, so not too good. We're only good from about just outside the red zone. 77 kick power, not dreadful, but next season will probably be a lot better in that capacity after he progresses a little bit over the offseason. Kick returner was Dickenzie Durant all season, and Juice Campbell all season as our punt returner. I think next year we'll try to mix that up a little bit, and I guess we'll just go through individual leaders throughout the country as well. So to see Braxton Miller, far and away the leader in quarterback rating, as he actually won the Heisman, as we saw in last episode. Keith Wenning from Ball State Led in passing, Aaron Murray for Georgia. He's set to hit the NFL, 96 overall out of Georgia. Joe Southwick, I remember him for that 1 year. Chase Reddick for Boston College. Sean Mannion, future draft pick. James Franklin, he finished 5th in the Heisman voting. Teddy Bridgewater there, he's set to play in the Natty against Ohio State and Braxton Miller. Taj Boyd, he's set to graduate. So I do love these coming in with a roster set from back in the day and kind of seeing some of these old names resurface. Leader in rushing yards, John Lee out of Air Force. Devin Campbell. See, I'm not really familiar with any of these guys. Okay, Dree Archer, of course, familiar with. Melvin Gordon there, only a sophomore for Wisconsin. Carlos Hyde, graduating from Ohio State. All these guys over 1,000 yards on the season. D'Anthony Thomas, what a stud he's been at Oregon during his college career, and he's going to be back next year. Only a sophomore, I think. Oh, no, junior, so he might enter the NFL draft. TJ Yeldon, Jeremy Hill, 2 SEC guys. Now we'll go over to receiving. DeJuan Scott from Miami of Ohio leads the way. Rashad Green there, of course, a future draft pick by the Jaguars. Not familiar with really any of these guys. Tim Smith actually won the Biletnikoff out of Virginia. 16 touchdowns on the season, leading all receivers. Devin Smith for Ohio State, future Jets draft pick. Bernard Reedy, who we saw in this series, kind of had a great day against us in a previous episode. Marquise Lee for USC, and that's going to do it for all 1,000-yard receivers. Go over to defense, a few guys here with over 100 tackles. Kerry Fort for California. I think he actually transferred from Penn State. Tackles for loss. Joe Gautney from Louisiana Monroe with 38. That's absurd. None of these guys really spark my memory. Brendan Scarlett, I think he went on to play for Houston a little bit. Go over to sacks. Joe Gautney led in sacks as well, along with Karifi Tala. Giovanni Francois from Florida International, who we played against earlier in the year. Ty McGill, I think he was a Raiders draft pick as well. I did want to go over to interceptions. EJ Gaines, he won a bunch of hardware. He won the Bednarik, the Nagurski, and the Thorpe. 11 interceptions, 20 pass deflections, and 3 forced fumbles for this Missouri corner. A senior at 90 overall, and he should be a draft pick. Maybe I'll get a Madden 25 franchise going. That way we could kind of import the draft classes. I don't know. Probably not anytime soon, but that's something I'll keep in mind down the road. And that's going to do it here for stats. I'm not going to spend too much time in that, as we're already probably about 10 minutes into this episode or so. So we'll sim ahead. We'll sim the bowl games. And I'm not sure if simming ahead will also sim the national championship quite yet. And again, it is a 13-0 Ohio State after they won the Big Ten championship against Michigan. And then a 12-0 Louisville out of the American Conference, as they don't even have a conference championship yet. It definitely should have been Texas A&M, a 12-1 SEC champion. That would have been Manziel against Braxton Miller, and that would have been a great national championship there. Yeah, you saw some of these bowl games are getting simmed. It's funny how quick it is, like, to transfer week to week in sports games nowadays. Back in NCAA here, as you see, it takes maybe close to a minute or so. So as you see here, Ohio State wins the national championship as they take down Louisville 44-20. I called it in the last episode. I said Ohio State would win by at least 20, and here they win by 24. As they would go on to score, what was that, 31 unanswered points from the start of the second to about the middle of the third quarter. Just totally took control of this game. Take a look at some player stats. Braxton Miller, 3 touchdowns, and a very efficient passing day for him, as he added a touchdown on the ground as well. Receiving, Devin Smith, almost 100 yards. Nick Vannett, a future Seahawks draft pick. And is that Philly Brown? P. Brown? I think that's Philly Brown. He had 50 and a touchdown. 2 sacks here for Ryan Shazier. Adolphus Washington added a sack and a half. Bradley Roby with an interception. And Barnett with an interception as well. So it looked like Teddy Bridgewater didn't have the best day. Now we'll go over to see Louisville stats. And he actually got hit from this one. So only 17 pass attempts for Bridgewater in this one, as he was knocked out of the game early on. He had a touchdown and an interception. and I think he's set for the NFL draft. Michael Dyer, 67 yards on the ground. Devontae Parker, 92 yards and a touchdown. Gerald Christian there won the Mackey Award, 4 catches for him. Anything defense, 3.5 sacks there for M. Smith. And I'm honestly not too sure who that is. So now we'll just kind of scroll down all bowl results here. UCF takes down Iowa State. Virginia Tech wins 30-14 against Auburn in the Orange Bowl. Georgia wins the Cotton Bowl against West Virginia. Texas A&M beats Boise State pretty convincingly there, 35-13, as they end number 2 on the season. I said they should have been in the national championship. Notre Dame rocks Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, and of course we lost to Notre Dame earlier in the year. USC takes the Rose Bowl, and they finish 3rd in the nation with a 13-1 record. Michigan loses to Missouri in the Capital One Bowl. And I'll kind of speed it along here. BYU, another team we faced this year, loses by 2 to Northwestern. Florida over Michigan State. South Carolina over Miami. And ECU, who we lost to a couple episodes ago, is beat by about 20 there in the Liberty Bowl against LSU. UNC actually does take down Alabama, as Alabama a 4-loss season here. TCU wins. Texas beats Washington. Syracuse beats UCLA. And yeah, we'll just kind of scroll down. I do want to see some of these, but as we go down more, there's really none noteworthy. Although Penn State barely beats Ball State just by 1 there in the Little Caesars Bowl. And Hawaii, who we lost to last episode, loses in the Hawaii Bowl. So that's really going to do it here for bowl games. As now we're going to jump ahead and finally kick gear into this offseason. I know it's kind of a long intro, but I wanted to cover some stuff around the league, around the nation. I wanted to check out our player stats and, of course, see how the bowl season turned out. So now it's going to start us, and we see there 4-8, Lance Leipold, 0-1 versus top 25 teams, and our target wins was 5, so we just missed it there. But next season I think we'll be all right, as we still have 4 years left on this contract, and I think next year we'll win at least 6 games. So here we go with the coaching carousel. I don't know if I'll go all the way through here, but we'll definitely check out some of the top teams. As Virginia Tech, their man Frank Beamer retires after a very good season at 12-2. So let's see who they bring in to be the head coach. Ruffin McNeil, a candidate. Charlie Strong, a candidate. Luke Fickell. Bud Foster. And I was about to say, just stick with Bud Foster. He's been there an eternity and super deserving of that job. So Bud Foster there gets hired at Virginia Tech. Mark Helfrich fired from Oregon after an 8-5 season. Charlie Strong they're giving a call to. Ruffin McNeil. And it looks like Charlie Strong is going to be the guy here in Oregon. Obviously fresh off a national championship. And he's getting a little upgrade here, I guess, as he's going to the West Coast. Now Steve Spurrier retires after an 8-5 year. And let's see who the Gamecocks bring in to replace him. Mark Hutseth, Bill Blankenship. And it looks like Ruffin McNeil. He goes from East Carolina to South Carolina. And I do like that move from the Gamecocks. Keep him in state. And it seems like he'll do a good job there in the SEC. Now Louisville, fresh off a national championship loss, forced to replace Charlie Strong, who went on over to Oregon. And they do just promote their offensive coordinator, Sean Watson, as he'll take over as the head man there for the Cardinals. Now to California, Sonny Dykes fired after a 3-9 season. Rod Carey, Luke Fickell. And Luke Fickell is going to go from Ohio State as their defensive coordinator on a national championship team. And he's going to go over for the Golden Bears and try to resurrect that program there in the Pac-12. Now, Kyle Whittingham fired at Utah. And isn't he still coaching there in present day, like 10 years later? So that's pretty crazy. The Utes moving on from Whittingham. Tom Herman, Mark Hudspeth, Tim DeRuyter. And it looks like Pete Quiet. No, I thought they were going to go with the Boise State D coordinator. Still calling people. And Derek Mason. I know he ended up at Vanderbilt. Derek Mason ends up here in Utah as I guess that's his alma mater. I didn't know that. So yeah, he ends up back home for the Utes where he went to college. Brett Bielema fired at Arkansas after a 3-9 year as the Razorbacks are forced to find a new head man. Both coordinators for Boise State in consideration, but they're going to go with Tom Herman He would go to Texas? So Tom Herman, the offensive coordinator for Ohio State National Championship team, will be coaching Arkansas next year. Pittsburgh, a 1-11 season there in the ACC. That's pretty bad. Paul Chryst was fired, and deservedly so. Rod Carey under consideration. Vance Bedford, Mark Hudspeth, Robert Prince. And they're going to go with Boise State defensive coordinator Pete Kwiatkowski. So Kwiatkowski, a 12-2 job there as the D coordinator for Boise State, and he's moving on to Pittsburgh. Now the home state team for me, Rutgers, they fired Kyle Flood after a 2-10 season, and they're still in the American Conference. We're going to go year by year and realign the conferences as they're set to join the Big 12, or I'm sorry, the Big 10. I don't know if this year or the next year, as the Scarlet Knights hire Robert Prince there from Boise State. So I'm definitely going to monitor that to see how that goes. 1-11 Minnesota, very bad season for the Golden Gophers as they fire Jerry Kill. Pete Lembo from Ball State, Skip Holtz, Jeff Quinn, Mark Snyder, Mark Hudspeth, and finally Hudspeth gets hired here. He's been under consideration for at least 5 or 6 jobs already, and he lands there for Minnesota. And now as it goes on, all the top Power 5 teams are kind of out of consideration here, so we'll just skip ahead. ECU hires Todd Berry. Jeff Quinn to Nevada after a good year there in Buffalo. Charlie Weiss fired at Kansas as they bring in Vance Bedford, the D coordinator for Louisville. UL Lafayette hires Bob Cole from NIU. Steve Farmer for UL Monroe. And now we'll just look at these last couple top coordinator spots as Virginia Tech brings in Kyle Whittingham. So that's a very good staff there for the Hokies with Bud Foster and Kyle Whittingham leading that defense. Defensive coordinator here for Ohio State goes to Nick Holt out of Western Kentucky. Ohio State offensive coordinator, they hire Kenny Edenfield, a 3-year deal from Troy. And lastly, we'll just do this D coordinator spot for Stanford as they bring in Ron English after he was fired at Eastern Michigan. So now we'll just sim the rest of the coaching carousel. There's only about 45 jobs remaining that needed to be filled, but none of really any relevance at this point. We saw the top head coaches kind of go on with that carousel, and we'll just let the AI computer fill out the rest. We're not really too worried about that. And we are set to look at transfer requests, and I gotta say I'll be super disappointed if we don't at least get a couple transfers. I think with all, at this point with the rosters, there are some interesting players that could be headed our way. So now we're here at the players leaving stage of the offseason, and I definitely did not expect to see any transfer requests to move on elsewhere. Desi Watkins, he had a catch there in the previous episode as we threw him in late in the game to get him some playing time, and he wants to go to Louisville. I believe that's UL. So he wants to head to a national championship team, or a team fresh off a national championship appearance, rather, as he does have decent ratings all around, good spec catch, route running and catching need a little work, but respectable at this point, and an 87 jumping, very, very good. So I'm surprised. I mean, we're going to try and get him back. I mean, he's definitely going to play in more than 9 games, so we'll give him that. He needs some more time to think things over. So do we promise? I don't think he's definitely not getting 40 catches, and I don't know if he's even going to get 25 catches next year. But we'll just throw that out there just to see. And he is leaving, so Desi Watkins, someone I expected to kind of propel our offense this year, battle for some playing time, he's moving on, and I did not expect to see that. Javon Ashley is our only running back, set for graduation along with Colton Clay at fullback. Of course, Desi Watkins is transferring along with a few receivers. Terry Gannon, someone I never got involved. 66 overall as a senior redshirt. He was kind of like an emergency quarterback for us as I threw some throwing ratings on there for him as a receiver, but it just never worked out for him to find the field. Lamont Collier, he was kind of underwhelming. Our wide receiver 1, and he was 4th in receiving, so not a good, really a good season there as he's moving on, along with Michael Galloway, who kind of came on strong there in the latter part of the season. Channing Gates at left tackle will be graduating, along with Jarvis Sneed, who started all 12 games for us at right guard. Randolph Durman we didn't really see much of, along with Lester Atkins. Ladarius Gresham a loss up front. He had 9 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. So that's where Barry Barber's going to go. Barry Barber's going to be our guy at right end and fill that hole. And we expect a lot more production from him. Dallas Wood and Randall Gunn were 2 D tackles we kind of rotated through, as Gavin Battaglia will be set to be our clear starter along with Clarence Thurman next year. Travell Terry, a very good season there at middle linebacker, leading in tackles, a couple interceptions, but we will need to replace him next year, along with Reese Waters, who started most of the time at right outside linebacker. D'Angelo Bush is the only DB we're going to lose, and he's probably our best. I don't know, Juice Campbell's probably our best DB, but D'Angelo Bush made a huge impact last year for us, playing in the box, playing back in coverage, and his presence is definitely going to be felt, or his presence is definitely going to be missed on that back end. Matt Barr's our senior punter, as we'll have to move on to a freshman punter. And now we're set to hit, and I will save this draft class just in case we do start a series on Madden 25 with these draft classes. So with that, we're gonna head towards transfer requests, and as I've said, I'll be very disappointed if we don't get any. I'm hoping for at least 2, but I'd rather more, of course. First, we'll take a look at some draft results, though. We'll only cover the major teams, really. As Alabama, there are 3 first-rounders. C.J. Mosley, A.J. McCarron, Ed Stinson, Clinton Dix there in the 2nd. 3 receivers in the 4th. And then a few more players there later on. Who else are we going to check out here? Auburn, Chris Davis. No one really too noteworthy. Boise State, Charles Leno. He would go on to play for the Bears, I believe. Maybe a couple other teams. Clemson. Taj Boyd went in the 2nd round. Stephon Anthony, who I think was a first-round pick in real life there. Grady Jarrett entered the draft as a junior along with Sharon Peak at receiver. Up Florida. Jalen Watkins. It's weird. It says he's redshirted there at the top. It says he's redshirted. So they redshirt him this year, and then he still entered the draft. I don't know. That's a weird situation. Dominic Easley, Purefoy, Chaz Green. I think he went on to the Dallas Cowboys. And a few picks there for the Gators. The Seminoles, Terrence Brooks, Timmy Jernigan, Rashad Green was one of the best receivers this year. Christian Jones at middle linebacker. LaMarcus Joyner there in the 4th round. Carlos Williams, Cameron Irving. Some good players there for the Seminoles. Aaron Murray, a first-round pick, along with A.J. McCarron out of Alabama. Who else we got here? LSU. I don't even know who that is. Him and Barrow. Craig Lawson, do you remember him? Lyle Collins, a 4th-round pick. And Odell Beckham enters as a junior, and he's a 5th-round pick along there with Jarvis Landry, both receivers entering the draft as juniors. And Teddy Bridgewater will return next season for the Louisville Cardinals, as they have a few draft picks there off that national championship appearance team. Denzel Perryman for Miami. Seantrell Henderson, a former number 1 recruit, along with Stephen Morris there at quarterback. Only 1 draft pick for Michigan, and that's Taylor Lewan in the 1st round. Missouri, they had a good team this year. E.J. Gaines, 11 interceptions on the year, and he goes in the 4th. Michael Sam there in the 7th. No one for NC State. Nebraska, Taylor Martinez in the 6th. UNC had a good amount of draft picks, although on day 2, day 3. Notre Dame, they had to have a few at least. Zach Martin in the 3rd. Prince Shembo, who had a big day against us. And then a few more. Bennett Jackson there in the 7th. And the national championship, Ohio State Buckeyes. Only a handful of draft picks. 2 in the 1st there, both defensive backs. Christian Bryant, Bradley Roby, Jack Mewhort there in the 2nd, along with Carlos Hyde, Andrew Norwell. And it is Philly Brown. And Philly Brown there in the 3rd. And Corey Lindsley, the Remington winner, there in the 7th round. So Braxton Miller will return next year, defending his Heisman Trophy. Aaron Colvin in the 1st. for Oklahoma. Then Damian Williams, Gabe Icard, and a few others there. Oregon, Josh Huff in the second. I remember when he was drafted by the Eagles, and I thought he was going to be sick. And then Ifo Ekpre Alamu, he was a good corner there in college, although injuries kind of derailed his career. And we're getting towards the end here before we look at our transfers. Texas, a bunch of picks. 4 in the first round. Jackson Jeffcoat, Mason Waters, Mike Davis, Quandre Diggs. There's Jackson Shipley. And that's really there for Texas. And USC, definitely want to check them out. Kevin Graff, George Uko, Silas Redd, I remember him. I think a transfer from Penn State. And Devon Kennard, I think maybe a Giants draft pick. Virginia Tech. No one too. Kyle Fuller, Logan Thomas, who was a third in the Heisman voting. And we'll just finish here with Wisconsin, our in-state team. Jared Abbrederis, Jacob Peterson, James White, Chris Borland. And now we're going to look at transfers, and I'm really hoping, I hope this isn't anticlimactic, but let's check it out. And we do get 3 transfer requests. I'm not familiar with any of these players, but I'll take them. Ife Scott Imakpo, going to have to look up that name. We get him over from Ball State. Redshirted as a freshman, and obviously didn't record any stats as a redshirt freshman. So let's look at his ratings. A 75 overall, which isn't too bad. 89 speed will take. The acceleration is decent. Agility needs to get a little bit better. His route running is good, although his catching is going to need a lot of work. Looks like he's good with the ball in his hands, a decent spin move, good elusiveness, good carrying. And so obviously he's going to have to sit out next year, but for the following year he could be in the mix in our receiving core. Robbie Bain, this is a very good one. A 72 overall right end from Illinois, 6'3", 290. So they steal Eric Smiley from us, who we were pursuing at quarterback, but now we get Robbie Bain from them. 80 speed at 290 pounds, super athletic, 85 acceleration, 81 awareness, 73 strength, 74 tackle, and just well-balanced all around, well-balanced D end. But he's probably someone we want to even throw out defensive tackle with his size. I think he's more of a 3-4 D end, but he's going to have to sit out a year, a redshirt freshman, but I think he's someone who's going to make a big impact for us, as he did play. So he played his freshman year and then was redshirted. So he had a forced fumble in limited time and a tackle for loss as well. And now a big offensive line transfer here. Randy Heidman from Miami of Ohio, 67 overall, redshirted in his freshman year. Pretty good rate. I mean, impact block and strength off the charts for our team, and that pass block and run block. They're going to need some work, but he'll sit out next season. So not as impactful as I would like, but I think Robbie Bain and Heidemann were going to be very good players for us. I was kind of hoping for someone a little more with some name recognition, but I'll take that for sure. As we're going to advance here, I think, to recruiting now. And we have no targets on our recruiting board right now. We kind of did what we wanted to do. We didn't have too many departures, which left us with not many scholarships. So I don't know. I don't think we're really going to accomplish anything in recruiting. I'll poke around a little bit, see if there's anyone who is just like not even considering a school. Like, we got to go over to lock percentage here. And look at that. Like, this guy is 13%. I don't think he even wants to go to college. And then Ray DeLoach here, a 5-star athlete, only 15% committed on a team. So maybe we could jump in and kind of steal one of these type of guys. But I got to stay in line with my recruiting rules. And in order not to, move this Marquette team along too much, I limited ourselves to only recruiting from states that border us this season. So with all the recruiting points to our disposal, I only limited myself to going through quarterbacks and safeties, as those were the only 2 positions we were unable to recruit that were on our position needs list. We did get that transfer over from Bain from Illinois, so that covered defensive tackle. So now we really only need to bring in a quarterback, which I was hoping we would get in the transfer portal, but that just didn't seem to be the case. And then we kind of want to bring in a safety as well. So starting with quarterbacks, Jacob Randall, a 2-star, and he is from Florida. We weren't going to recruit outside of our states that were kind of in our proximity, which was Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, and Minnesota. So he's in Florida, but at this point in the offseason, we still lead his recruiting, and we haven't given him any points all year. So he's someone, if we offered, he probably would come to us. Unfortunately, we don't have 100% scouted, only 55%. And he is a scrambler, 78 break tackle, very good. Looks like he has a C speed, although it's not covered. It's uncovered. And agility and acceleration, pretty good with a 68 throw accuracy. And his throw power is a C as well. So we have a few other guys here. Max Patrick, a JUCO. Keith Oliver, a JUCO. And Eddie Lynch, a JUCO as well. Just based on that, Randall would be a freshman. He's already interested. I think we'll just go ahead and offer him. And then we haven't offered, I don't think we even need to really pour much into him. So we'll leave him on standby for now as we look at safeties. Gary McKeon, 56 overall, though he's only 50% scouted. And he's someone with C speed. So that's kind of why we passed on a safety in season who ended up committing to, I forget what school, but that player had a 75 speed, although he was interested. And Gary McKeon with a C speed, we're not really interested in that. So that'll bring us down to Rima Davis out of Michigan, a B speed, and really not much covered. 75 pursuit, a good under tackling, but press at 60, not too great, and nothing really of note as his tackling and coverage ratings are all D, although I like that B speed. So he's someone we might go after. Just a couple more players here. Courtney Fisher out of Illinois, 80 speed, so yeah, we're not even biting on. We're just going to go ahead and remove Fisher and McKeon for now. And then we have two corners here, both JUCO corners who maybe will be able to convert to safety. This is Mark Williams, a 2-star out of Big Spring, Texas. His speed at B, pretty good, although it's not uncovered. And good coverage ratings there. And hit power at 72, definitely could get by as a safety with that. D tackle, although, I mean, the hit power kind of makes up for it along with the pursuit. Now we have Bryant Sullivan, a JUCO corner as well, out of Utah. And the only reason we're pursuing these guys is because they had low lock percentage, as we kind of just covered a few minutes ago, and they're both JUCOs. So we're kind of going out of our scouting region here with these two, but this late in the recruiting process, they're still kind of undecided on where they want to go, and they're both JUCOs. So I don't see too much harm in bringing in either of these guys. And it looks like Sullivan, higher overall, but I feel like I like Williams' skill set a little bit more. So we offered Jacob Randall, and we don't have to pour too much. Maybe we'll just throw like 3,000 at him. Maybe not even that much. We'll do like 25-20, and I think that should bring Jacob Randall over to Milwaukee. So then it really just comes down to Rima Davis against Mark Williams. And I think I probably like Williams better as a safety. We need a little more instant depth, which is something he brings. As a JUCO player, Rima Davis would still be a few years along. So we're going to offer him a scholarship and just pour the rest of our points here into Mark Williams, a JUCO corner out of Texas. And after this, we'll review the rest of the board. I wish you could just like automatically do it. I wish you didn't have to like just keep your finger on the controller here as you wind up these points. And it's a shame we didn't have Eric Smiley, because then they would have just been 10,000 points straight to Eric Smiley in this process, and I think that's something he would have been down with. So now Bobby Price, a linebacker we kind of got committed at the end of the cycle. Brian Joseph, a JUCO guard who's going to compete for a spot on the starting line in year 2. Jeff Harris, the 6th rated fullback, and he'll be a 4-year starter for us. Dan Johnson, a JUCO offensive tackle out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, will probably just be a depth piece for us in year 2. Jerry Jones, our 2nd highest rated recruit out of Elwood, Indiana, will certainly be in a rotational role in year 2, along with Mike Johnson, another 3-star D end. Eddie Stevens will jump in as our starting punter, as he's set to be a 4-year starter at that spot. Daniel Armstrong, a JUCO linebacker who has very good pass rush ratings, and we might tinker with him at D end a little bit next season. Kenny Johnson, our lone DB commit, a 3-star corner out of Grosse Pointe Woods, Michigan. Sean Murphy was the highest rated player we got this year, a 3-star offensive tackle out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and he's going to be a year 1 starter for us. Then there's Scott Dixon, the first ever commit for the Marquette Golden Eagles, a 2-star balanced tight. It calls him a blocking tight end, but he's definitely more of a balanced tight end, and he'll be on the field a lot next season alongside Grant Cooper as we try to implement a little more 2 tight end sets. So that's going to do it here for recruiting in year 1. Obviously, we have to sim through this period, and then we'll take a look at overall recruiting rankings around the nation, along with some of the top recruits to look out for as this series goes on. So as it would play out, we didn't end up getting either player. Jacob Randall, none of these quarterbacks even committed to a school. So Randall, you see our green bar there. I guess we just didn't offer him enough points to actually win him over. So Randall goes uncommitted, and we'll just assume all these guys stayed at their JUCO, or Randall just went the JUCO route as well. Mark Williams, who we tried to get there, ends up committing and staying in state there with SMU. I'm pretty sure SMU is in Texas. As our first initial class is only going to end with 11 commits. We'll take a look at the top classes here, and we end up at 101. You see there under 3 stars, they gave us 8. So the game on their own, the AI just went and recruited and got a bunch of players committed, but we are going to remove them. As we look at here, our overall class, Kenny Johnson, number 1, although I thought Murphy was our top-rated prospect, but I guess I was wrong about that. So there, we got a running back here, a quarterback, both 3 stars, a 3-star safety, a bunch of players here the computer just added onto our class, and we're obviously going to cut them because we can't have any compromise here in this dynasty. We got to do it on our own and try to really work our team up. We'll look at all prospects and just go down like the top 10 or maybe the top at each position here. Bobby Baker, the top prospect in the nation, 6'4", 208 athlete out of Keller, Texas. He's going to Clemson. And I wish it just showed you their ratings after the fact. I mean, we don't really, why would we need to scout him now? I wish it just revealed all that now, although it will soon. I think once we get into like progression and all that, we could take a look more deeply at these prospects. Kyle Hunter, the top receiver, goes to Florida State, runs a 4.34. John Brown, an athlete, to Michigan. Nick Jameson, an athlete, to Mississippi State. Another athlete, Dan Carter, to Stanford. Brent Fuller, the second-rated receiver, to Washington. A couple more athletes here. Jason Lewis to USC. Tommy Miller to Oklahoma. And the top quarterback in the class, Chris Joseph, goes to Alabama. Trey Bright, the 10th-rated prospect, goes to Nebraska. And what about the other quarterbacks? Fred Holmes, number 2, to Kentucky. Charles Smiley to Texas. So all these quarterbacks staying in the SEC. But now Chad Clark, the 4th-ranked quarterback in the class, going to Hawaii. A great get there for the Warriors. Texas, LSU, USC, get some quarterbacks. Then we'll go to running back. Daryl Mosley, the top running back out of Morristown, New Jersey. Represent. That's actually where my mother's from. That's pretty wild. Daryl Mosley heading to Wisconsin. Similar story there from Jonathan Taylor, the New Jersey back, going over to Wisconsin. Kevin Lumpkin, number 2 in the nation at running back, goes to Georgia Tech. Max Roach to Oregon. Jeremiah Tanner, Ohio State. Lucas Singleton to Clemson, the top 5 backs there. Brock Hubbard to Clemson. Chad Morris to Oregon. Tim Kelly to Florida. Vanderbilt, a nice get there on a 5-star, Keith Carter. Tight end, top 1, only 5-star tight end in the class, 6'8", 247. Joey Roberts stays in state to play for the Longhorns. Dale Green stays in state to play with Georgia. Rashid Sherman to Auburn. Jason Wood to Arkansas. Joe Mann to Texas Tech. As those were the top 5 tight ends. The top tackle goes to Georgia, Ryan Young. Dane Keys to Kentucky. Brian Landry to Notre Dame. And Oklahoma and Missouri get a couple top guys as well. Texas also gets the top guard along with top tight end and Michael Franz. Quentin Jones going to Ohio State. Drew Peterson to Georgia. Michael Foster to Vanderbilt. And Florida State gets one as well. Jesse Jones, the top center, going to Georgia. And now I'll kind of try and speed through this a little bit quicker. Riley Johnson and Clayton Jones, 2 5-star DNs, going to Texas A&M and West Virginia, respectively. Jerome Wright, the top defensive tackle, going to Alabama. And look at the defensive tackle, the top 1 coming at 82, so not really a good defensive tackle class. Tim Garrison, the top outside linebacker to LSU. Lance Harden to Arizona, a good get for them. Kurt Bray, Texas Tech. The top middle linebacker, Kevin Wilcox, going to the Crimson Tide. Tony Callahan to the LSU Tigers. And the top corner at 73, so not a deep corner class. Marquise Dunlap to the Tigers, and David Parham, the second-ranked corner to Texas A&M. Darius Weiss to Oklahoma. The top free safety, Patrick Owens, is going to Duke. Miguel Alford, another good get there for Alabama. And now it's strong safety, Slade Fulton going to Georgia, the top strong safety. Thomas Jean going there to Texas A&M. The top kicker in the class going to Alabama, of course. And the top punter going to Texas. Now we're just back at athletes as we reviewed most of these guys. Robert Smith, a 5-star, going to San Diego State. Very good get there for the Aztecs. I love to see these top commits just going to non-Power 5 schools. It's kind of refreshing to see and gives a little more balance to these dynasties. So that's really it for recruiting. It wasn't super eventful here in year one, but like I said earlier, we didn't have many scholarships to give as we only had a couple players who graduated and opened up some more slots on this team. So I kind of just skipped through the position change phase because there wasn't really much going on there. And now here we are at training results. And quarterback, that's probably the biggest storyline going into year two. Who's going to be this team's starting quarterback? They pretty much split starts here in year one, but I would definitely like to get a more stable situation back there and just have an every week starter. So they both progressed pretty well. Haywood up 6 overall points. Koufax up 5. And let's go over to throwing and see how that turned out. So Koufax goes up a 3 in accuracy, 1 in throw power. So 74 now in power, 81 in accuracy. Jake Haywood, obviously the better passer here. +1 in power and +5 there in throw accuracy. Only 2 behind Koufax now, which is pretty big. Ruben Brown here, we saw him last episode for a couple drives as his arm gets a little bit better for there on accuracy. Now it's 75 throw power, 72 accuracy. He's up to a 67 overall now as a redshirt junior. At running back, this is going to be kind of a four-headed monster this year. Kind of headlined there by Theo Briggs, Storm Norwood, Dexter Dowling, and Tyson Bolt, although only a 68 overall as a true junior. I think he would maybe get probably not more carries than Briggs, but maybe second in carries next year. Jonathan Thomas, our highest rated receiver, he goes up 4 points, and Shane Lytle there up 3. Jordan Pinson and Randall Darby now are going to compete, and I think Pinson will probably pull away as our third receiver on this team. Both he and Shane Lytle are probably good slot receivers, but I guess between the two, Pinson probably more of an outside threat as Lytle will likely remain our slot receiver. Randall Darby will provide pretty good depth, and we'll work him into a couple packages as well. Then you see our transfer, F.A. Scott Imakpo, and he'll be sitting out this year as all transfers have to do in this game. It's not like today where you can transfer and then play right away. And he's at a 90 speed, so already our fastest receiver as his catch ratings need to improve. Then there's Thad Archibald, a redshirt sophomore out of Marquette, Michigan, 5'7", 170, and he's at a 69 overall as a redshirt sophomore. At tight end, Grant Cooper goes up 5, and I think he might be the highest rated player on this offense aside from quarterback. His catching goes up to a 78 as he had a ton of drops last year. Derek Morris, our senior redshirt tight end, but he'll be the third string after we brought in Scott Dixon, a JUCO tight end. Randy Heidemann will not play this year after transferring over, but he's already up to a 71 overall as a redshirt freshman, so we love to see that. Jackson Lyles started all 12 games for us at left guard last year, and he's going to be the starter again this year, now up to a 74. Tremaine Berry, again, started all games last year at center. Now he's up to a 75. At right guard, we're probably going to start a freshman here. A redshirt JUCO prospect that we just got. I believe Brian Joseph, but Don Inge and Chauncey Owens will compete for the backup spot. Montez Chamberlain led our team in sacks allowed last year as he's set to be a senior starter at right tackle, although Jabari Branch, who figures to be our swing tackle, will compete for that spot as well. Darquez Goddard up to a 75 overall, leading the way for our defensive ends. He's a redshirt senior now. And then Barry Barber at right end, set for his first year as a full-time starter. Had a very good year last year in a rotational role, and will now look to put that to the next level. There you see Robbie Bain, a 75 overall D tackle, already as a redshirt sophomore, but he has to sit out the year after transferring from Illinois. So Clarence Thurman and Gavin Battaglia will be our top 2 defensive tackles, and I expect big seasons out of them. And then Reggie Watkins, a true sophomore now at 68 overall, who we didn't see at all last season. Denzel Highsmith, again, will start at left outside linebacker, and Davin Rice figures to be the man to succeed Travell Terry as this team's middle linebacker. Ahmad Plummer at right outside linebacker missed the second half of last season, but he's set for a good senior year after being one of our most reliable tacklers last year. Dickenzie Durant set for his senior year. Juice Campbell, a redshirt junior, as they'll headline our starting corners again in year 2 with Marcus Dixon, a senior, as our slot corner. So a lot of turnover at corner going to happen in the next year or two, as all these guys you see here, Brevin Nash, Demetrius Bush, who we didn't see any of last year, all these guys are going to be gone within the next season or two. So we're going to have to overhaul this secondary in a huge way. Rondell Nichols, another senior, played in the backup role last year, but he'll be the starter, succeeding D'Angelo Bush, who was one of our best defenders last year. Chance Pelland, a true sophomore, his backup at 67 overall. Then at strong safety, again, it's going to be Tyler Black, as he has 2 more years of eligibility. Then there's Dylan Mackey, now a junior. He goes up to a 76, and let's see what his kick power is now at. It goes up 4 to 81, so hopefully now he can at least hit from about 40 yards. 40-45, we'll take that. So a lot of progression here, but still, we don't have a player of at least 80 overall on this team. So that pretty much does it for the offseason, folks. It wasn't super eventful, but we did get a few transfers that I'm happy about. And overall, our recruiting class ranked 101 in the nation, but we got pretty much everything I needed. We missed out on a quarterback and a safety, but we'll try to make up for it here. We'll get an initial look at our year 2 recruiting board, and we'll just go position by position here as we close out. And we need 2 quarterbacks next year. I mean, Koufax and Haywood are in their last seasons, so we have a few targets here. Danny Mobley, a 2-star, he's interested. Greg Walker, Lawrence Jackson, both 3-star signal callers, one out of Illinois, one out of Michigan, and those 2 guys are going to be huge targets for us. Very talented quarterbacks. We need a couple of running backs as well. We have Dusty Alexander here, right now, 68 overall, 3-star out of Illinois. Jason Howell, hopefully he gets a little bit better in scouting. Thomas Collins looks pretty solid, a 3-star power back out of Flushing, Michigan. And like I said, we need 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, and we also need 2 receivers. Sherrod Phillips, a JUCO, 6'4", 207 out of Lansing, Illinois. And then Kevin Coleman, probably our top receiver at 66 overall right now before scouting. 56 on the board at wide receiver out of Esterville, Iowa. We need a tight end, but unfortunately, there's literally no tight ends interested throughout the entire nation, and that goes for offensive tackle as well. But luckily, we were able to get Sean Murphy and that transfer there. So we need a couple interior linemen, Bobby Marcus and Adam Jones, pretty solid. Hopefully they go up a little bit in scouting. And then a few centers here. David Cotton at 69 overall and Lance Edwards at 66 overall. Either of them would be a great get, but Cotton, a 3-star. And I think if we were to get him, he would start day 1 at center for us, as Tremaine Berry is set to graduate. We need a couple other defensive ends. David Landry, Titus Franklin, Antonio Carr, all 3-stars, and they all look pretty good, so we'd be happy with either of them. Again, we need a defensive tackle in this class, but just none interested, as was the case last year, although we were able to get that Bain transfer from Illinois, and he'll provide a huge boost there. We need 1 linebacker. We only have 2 options. We have James Johnson at outside linebacker, and then Freddie Olson here at inside linebacker. As I kind of touched on just previously, we need 2 corners in this class, as we're set to flip a whole new set of players there at corner. Aaron Clark and William Culver lead the way here, and Robert Williamson there, 3-star as well out of Minnesota. Damian Freeman and Mike Carroll, 3 stars as well. So a few good options here, and I think we're going to be covered at corner throughout this process. Then we need a couple safeties. Evan Osborne, Larry Campbell, nothing to write home about, and then Roy McIntosh as well, a 1-star JUCO, and we don't really have many options there at safety. Maybe we'll just get some guys at corner to maybe convert. And then we do have a athlete interested. We had no athletes last year. Mark Henry, the world's strongest man, right? If you know, you know. And we did get 50% scouting on him so far. And he looks to be either a good safety. I think most likely he's going to be a safety. Although it looks like he might be able to play a little receiver as well. So pretty good. I think our recruiting board looks to be in pretty good shape. Last year we only needed to fill like 12 spots. This year we need to fill about like 18. So our recruiting is going to be a lot more active this year. But that's going to do it here in this episode, folks. This is where I'm going to leave you. I really appreciate you sticking it out with this off-season episode. I know it might have been dull at times, but you know, it's necessary to build a winning team. So thank you so much for sticking around with this episode. Even more so, thank you for tuning into season 1 of this Marquette Dynasty. And I really look forward to year 2, as I think we're going to take a big step ahead and kind of come into our own as a football program here. So as always, everybody, it's been real and be well. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.